Hey guys, Namm 2020. We're in the Gibson acoustic guitar booth with Don here, who heads up that division.
Absolutely.
At the beginning of 2020, I heard that the Gibson acoustic range was having that sort of change of focus that the electric guitar range had last year, splitting it into like an original and a modern series. So I guess a good place to start will be for you to maybe explain what that means and how some of the models are changing in 2020.
Fantastic. Our modern series, of course, that's the meat and potatoes. That's what you know what Gibson Acoustic is. 45 standards, Hummingbird standards, our studio line, Songwriters, etc. That's still there. It's still great guitars, a great part of what we do. But there's people out there that like that little more historic touch, that want something that's kind of cool, like that guitar their dad had, that guitar they let get away 20 years ago, without going all the way up and buying an original one or paying for a really historically accurate replica. So these are in the spirit of. We've got 50s versions of J45s with the proper tuners, the right logo, pick guards. We have 60s versions with adjustable bridges, the right pick guards, tuners.
Awesome.
It's just fun. I mean, you know, they're modern guitars with just the appointments and look of an older guitar. The feel is there, priced basically in the same range as the modern counterpart, so you're not having to like really step up financially to get something cool and new. We have 45s, we have Hummingbirds, we have Doves, we have 185s, 200s, some LG2s, LOOs, crossing the whole gamut of our line, but with just that cool little look and feel of the time when acoustic music was king.
Okay, well that makes sense. So things like the Studio G45s, they'll stay in the standard series, the modern series. They'll still be standard Hummingbirds and J45s and blah, blah, blah. But then there'll be a sort of a similarly priced original version of them that'll have a little twist to be, you know, cool. Well, that makes sense. So as we walk down this line, we're just seeing some of those guitars that we were just talking about.
Absolutely. We can kind of talk through, like I said, your 50s versions. You got your 60s versions, the 45s and J50 with the adjustable bridges, a Southern Jumbo, Hummingbirds. You can see the tuners are correct, the pick guards, the real nitrocelluloid, truss rod covers, just the little touches. Doves, something we have not made a lot of over the past decade.
Stunning.
185s from the 50s, just wonderful. And with the exception of the 60s with the adjustable bridges, these all do have LR Baggs pickups in them. So they're older look, but modern guitars, ready for stage, ready for studio. The J200s, of course, in natural or sunburst. And the LG2s and the LOOs, nice small body additions to the line in the original series.
They're great little guitars, these.
Yes, absolutely.
Big fan of those.
Oh!
Look at that.
So just, again, so does this would still also be in the standard series as well, or are there some that are being dropped from the standard series?
Well, the LG2 was not one. We did that a few years ago, but the standard series is basically staying the same. We shrunk down some of the new modern cutaway line a little bit, and we're still having a nice variety of that, but not quite as many SKUs, because with the addition of these, we wanted to keep the line from being overly cumbersome as well.
Okay.
What we did here with the custom historic collection is we went back and found the years that mattered, the years that shaped Gibson Acoustic into what they are today, and emulated those guitars to the best of our ability. The parts, the pieces, the woods, the neck profiles, the dimensions is as close to originals as we have ever done. Started with the 1934 Jumbo, which was the first full-size guitar that Gibson ever had on the price list back in 1934, of course. 36 J35, 36 Advanced Jumbo, a pre-war Rosewood J200, a J55 from 1939. Look at this pre-war 200.
Look at the lacquer.
Stunning. Just stunning.
So what's the Is it aged or what's going on here?
Two things that we do. On all these guitars have thermally aged tops.
Okay.
Period correct from 34 through the banner years,
Yeah.
it's Adirondack red spruce. Once we get into the 50s, like with the 185s, 200s, and 60s with the Hummingbirds, it's thermally aged Sitka spruce because that's historically accurate. Then we always tout
It's almost like a French polish lacquer or something.
well, that's the thing, we always tout how the nitrocellulose lacquer for decades is getting thinner and thinner, and that's why those vintage guitars sound the way they do.
Yeah.
So we said, wow, we normally put about 9 coats of lacquer on our guitars. So let's just put less lacquer on it. Let's make it like an old guitar right out of the box.
Yeah.
So we put 4 coats of lacquer on this. It's about 4/1000th of an inch thick. But the thing is, you can't really aggressively buff that because it's so thin.
Yeah.
So we leave it with a little bit of a texturing. Leave it. You can see it conforms to the wood grain, which is what an old guitar looks like.
Yeah,
And
it's not matte, is it? It's not shiny.
It's
so
not shiny.
weird,
It's
isn't
kind
it?
of
That really
I can't explain it.
highly buffed
If I can
and
get-
polished guitar finish has only really been a thing probably of the last 40 years or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Absolutely.
And it's odd, isn't it? Because I think someone, even like myself, who perhaps isn't familiar with how guitars were made, going back prior to that, might look at this and go, well, it just doesn't look like someone's paid as much care and attention to doing this. But it's the exact
That's how it was.
opposite,
It's actually done to make it the best sounding guitar we could possibly make. Like I said, it is a little textured. That is on purpose because that's how you get.
Feel the neck.
The
Lee,
sound.
just have a look at that. Feel that. It's like a V, a
It's a
humongous.
wonderful thing.
Just
Would these have originally
lovely.
have not had? What era was this one? You said.
1934.
So would they have had truss rods in '34? Is that a
Yes,
modern?
they would have.
They still did have.
Yes,
this, though.
during the war years, they stopped because they didn't have access to metal. All that was going into the World War II effort, and so there was only a few years where they didn't have. Once they started making guitars in this manner.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge.
Man.
Oh, it's
Huge.
massive.
It's got the deep body. It's just fantastic. So,
a
great
jumbo.
representation of an era.
I love it.
Wonderful.
I mean, it's
The jumbos.
yeah. I mean, some of the
J200s
J200s here. So who's the lucky guy, or has Gibson just got all this stuff anyway that gets to go out and try and buy, versions of the original ones?
We have a team of people both in Bozeman, Montana, and Nashville that help with R&D and research, and we have a huge resource of vintage collectors, vintage dealers that will let us come in and measure their collection and look at their collection and borrow their collection and get it back to Bozeman so we can get the colors right, the bursts right, the feel right, and they're as excited about this as we are, especially when someone says, that's a copy of my original.
Yeah,
They
that's
love
cool.
to have
I
that,
bet, I
so.
bet. And actually, just on that last point, let's talk a little bit. I always think it's fascinating that Gibson's production is split with electric guitars in Nashville and then the acoustic guitars in Bozeman, Montana. And I know it's crazy to sort of think that the Montana, the Bozeman facility is quite, it's quite old and small, and the town's small. But explain why it's such a perfect place to build acoustic guitars.
Well, first off, just the vibe is so cool. People love living in Bozeman. People that live there want to be there, want to work there. So it's easy for us to retain, help, get really good people to work there. But more importantly is the climate. The climate is perfect for getting the wood acclimated. Nashville can be a little humid, as people that have been at Summer Namm know.
I remember that, yeah.
And so, it's with, like, the sides on our guitars average about 95 thousandths of an inch thick. Tops and backs about 110 thousandths of an inch thick. If the wood isn't acclimated right and that guitar's still moving, it's just not going to hold up. And Bozeman is a perfect place to be able to get the wood to the moisture content levels we need to build the best guitars in the world.
Well, there we go. That's what we wanted to hear. All right, Don, thank you very much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
seeing you
Thank you.
again.
Yes.
Look forward to seeing you next year. Bye, guys. Hope you enjoyed this.
monster. Monstrous.
Swap those out.